This video is brought to you by Campfire Blaze, more on that later. Also, stay tuned for an announcement about the Conlang database project, links in the description. Since I posted my Conlang showcase videos, I've received a great many questions about the cultures that speak my Conlangs and the world that they exist in. So today, we're going to have a quick look over the Refugium, my oldest and probably most fleshed out world-building project that I haven't abandoned yet. I started working on the first version of the Refugium sometime in 2011, originally to serve both as a sort of thought experiment as well as a setting for tabletop RPGs. But at some point I came up with an idea for a unifying storyline that tied the setting together, which I steadily began writing up into a book. But then I got distracted from the story by the world building, and then I got distracted from the world building by the conlanging, until today, when the Refugium mainly just serves as my linguistic playground, home to all except one of my conlangs. The Refugium has been through a tremendous amount of revision over the years, and I still update and change it on a pretty frequent basis as I inevitably grow to hate my older ideas. There are also certain aspects of the world that I can't reveal just yet, in the off chance that I ever get around to actually writing that story I was working on, but here's a brief overview of some of the basic elements of the Refugium. First of all, the name the Refugium has no reality within the setting itself. That's just what I call it, for reasons that we'll get into later. But to the inhabitants, it's simply called the world. Very importantly, the Refugium is not a planet. It's an area of land illuminated by a single unmoving sun. The land itself is, for all intents and purposes, flat, although it's unknown exactly what size or shape it is, again for reasons that we'll get into soon. The sun remains fixed at the very center of the Refugium, floating 1,000 kilometers above ground level. Crucially, the sun is not a star. It's a source of energy that's inherently magical in nature. In fact, there are no stars in the sky at all. The sun is the only source of natural light. The sun is also very small, only about 100 meters across, but it still shines brightly enough to illuminate an area roughly 6,000 kilometers in radius. Since the sun never changes position, the further one gets from the center of the world, the lower the sun appears in the sky, such that the central regions, which extend up to 1,000 kilometers from the center of the world, experience the equivalent of constant noontime sun, and the far regions, beyond 4,500 kilometers from the center of the world, experience the equivalent of perpetual evening. Between these two zones lie the umbral regions, the only parts of the world to experience a day-night cycle. The equivalent of night is created by 5 moons, each one 25 kilometers in diameter, which cast a shadow over the umbral regions as they pass in front of the sun. The length of a single day is measured from the moment of totality from one moon's eclipse to that of the following moon, a period that lasts exactly 24 hours. There's also a smaller 6th moon that circles the circumference of the umbral regions, taking 360 days to make one complete revolution. This outer moon also aligns with the white inner moon at midnight on the last day of the 12th month, marking the beginning of the new year in the standard calendar. By convention, most maps are drawn such that the line of syzygy between the outer moon, inner white moon, and the sun is vertical. The terms north, south, east, and west aren't used in the Refugium. All compasses point toward the sun. Almost every language in the Refugium has a word for in the direction of the sun, and another word meaning away from the sun, and many also distinguish more specific directions based on the positions of the moons. The fact that the sun is stationary also means that there are no seasons within the Refugium, and the climate in any given area is very stable. The closer one gets to the sun, the warmer the climate becomes, with an average day in the central regions being around 30 to 40 degrees, while in most areas of the far regions the temperature hovers around freezing. Proximity to the sun is also correlated with increased levels of precipitation. The temperature gradient and the absence of the Coriolis effect creates a single circulation cell, whereby a constant cold breeze blows from the far regions towards the sun, releasing rain as the air warms up. Directly beneath the sun is the aptly named Plateau of the Sun, an expanse of craggy mountains and highlands, with the tallest peaks reaching over 5,000 meters above sea level. The people of the central regions believe that the gods live atop the plateau, and thus consider it sacred ground where no mortal is permitted to tread. The area surrounding the plateau is dominated by montane cloud forests and dense jungles. The coast is constantly battered by huge storms blowing from the Great Ocean, creating enormous tracts of swampland and feeding huge river systems, while moving further inland the vegetation becomes sparser, transitioning into tropical savanna and eventually an enormous desert on the far side of the sun. The Refugium's biosphere is based on an alternate natural history of Earth. Many clades we're familiar with in the real world, like cats, dogs, sharks, crocodiles, and insects, don't exist, and are instead replaced by clades which in our world have gone extinct, like Creodonts, Mesonychids, Placoderms, Labyrinthodonts, and Trilobites. Plus, there are also many clades in the Refugium that have never existed in our world, like flying spiders, flightless bats, and whale-sized seals. Along those same lines, there are also humans in the Refugium, but they come in a much greater variety of races, ethnicities, and, depending on how exactly you define them, species than humans in the real world. Another important thing to mention is that the Refugium has no default time period considered the present day. Human civilization existed within the Refugium in some form for at least 6,000 years, during which time they developed all the way from hunter-gatherers up to a sort of post-industrial modern era, after which, due to certain events, their ultimate fate is unknown. For the purposes of this video, we'll focus on the world and cultures as they existed within the first few thousand years of human history. While the central regions are home to many different ethnicities, the most populous are the Thracian peoples, who migrated from the nearby Thracian subcontinent quite early on in history. Some of these Thracians would settle along the two great rivers, the Vurch and the Artazu, around which was founded the Empire of the Sun and the territory of Tsannur. The Empire of the Sun is the largest and longest-lasting empire in human history, although it did fracture, collapse, and reform at least 6 times during the several millennia for which it existed. As their name suggests, they worship and revere the sun, which they believe to be the father of the gods overseeing the world. The Empire is a ruthless authoritarian theocracy, believing themselves to be the chosen people of the sun god, and that all other cultures have forgotten or forsaken their creator, and so it is therefore the Empire's sacred duty to conquer them and to reunify the world under the dominion of the sun. Throughout its history, the Empire of the Sun's greatest rival was the Thracian Empire, with whom they, ironically, share a recent common ancestry. The continent of Thracia exists mostly within the umbral regions and has a generally mild climate, with temperatures ranging from 15 to 20 degrees near the coasts to about 5 degrees near the border of the far regions. Because there are no seasons, deciduous trees don't exist in the Refugium, and so the Thracian forests are instead comprised of palms, cycads, and mixed conifer species. Within the last few tens of millions of years, Thracia and Tsannur have undergone a degree of faunal interchange, such that many clades originally endemic to Thracia, like mustelids, titanotheres, and entelodonts, have spread into Tsannur, and many clades from Tsannur, like creodonts, glyptodonts, and astrapatheres, have crossed over into Thracia. The people of the Thracian ethnic group tend to be quite tall, and have dark hair, dark eyes, and beige to honey-coloured skin, though the inhabitants of Tsannur tend toward darker skin tones. Human settlement on Thracia began as a series of independent city-states, which later allied and unified into a single nation. Each city-state is ruled over by an Ankali, or king, all of whom wield a fair amount of local power but still serve under the Ankaliori, or High King, who rules from the capital, which was originally Ankutska, the oldest and largest city-state, but that changed when the thriving port city of Nakashta gained enough social and military influence to rival it. The dialect of the classical Thracian language spoken in Nakashta became a prestige dialect for many centuries thereafter. Although the cultural exchange between Thracia and the Empire of the Sun was initially somewhat peaceful, it soon erupted into a series of wars that lasted for several centuries. Although ostensibly fought over control of the Eratoscan Sea and the surrounding territories, the war was also largely motivated by the two empires' ideological differences. Unlike the Empire of the Sun, the Thracian Empire believes it's possible for one to earn their way into nobility through deeds rather than merely by virtue of their bloodline, an idea that the Empire of the Sun finds inherently blasphemous. Also unlike the Empire of the Sun, who consider the traditions handed down from their ancestors to be sacred and that every other culture in the world is intrinsically sinful, The Thracians place a great deal of value on innovation and progress, and are willing to assimilate the knowledge and customs of other peoples into their own culture. The war between the two empires motivated many technological advancements and defined major aspects of their respective cultures, but who ultimately won the war and what happened afterward is a story for another time. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the world, separated from Tamur by a volcanic mountain range, is a vast tract of grasslands, savanna, and floodplains, a land that the Empire of the Sun calls Thekadskun. Here live the Suma'a, one of the least populous varieties of human, found nowhere else in the world. They're also some of the tallest humans, with both men and women averaging over 6 feet in height, and they tend to be broad-framed, strong, and stoic. They live in terraced cities presided over by a number of ruling clans that constantly vie for local power. Their society is highly agrarian, making use of sophisticated systems of permaculture. Instead of using traditional farming methods of clearing the land of its resident species to make room for crops and livestock, the Suma'a instead work with and modify the local ecosystems, implementing techniques such as agroforestry, rotational grazing, and constructed wetlands, which allow them to harvest resources from the land without damaging it. This predilection for permaculture is closely tied to their religion. The Suma'a believe that the world itself is alive, and is sustained by invisible currents of vital energy that permeate the landscape like the blood vessels in an animal. The flow of this energy is said to be influenced by various aspects of the environment, such as the topography, weather, distribution of water and minerals, and the relative abundance of different species within any given area. The Suma'a organize their society in such a way as to accumulate as much of this life energy as possible, planning their cities to maximize the flow of energy through them, digging canals and planting gardens to manipulate the path of the energy currents, and erecting stone obelisks to mark where currents converge. The Suma'a have a very strong cultural and racial identity, and are a highly isolationist people, but they do engage in some trade with the nearby territory of Okolam across the Indigo Sea. Okolam is a warm, wet land with mangroves and swamps along its sunward coasts and forests of podocarp and fern trees further inland. As the continent has been isolated from the mainland for at least 30 million years, it's home to a unique assemblage of flora and fauna, including Chalicotheres, Aphrotheres, and terrorbirds, which are found nowhere else in the world. The Okalayo are usually quite short, averaging between 5 to 5.5 feet tall, and have taupe to ochre-coloured skin and short hair among both men and women, with body and facial hair being virtually absent. The Okalayo civilization first developed around the Imakayu River and the surrounding wetlands. To navigate the waterways, they rapidly developed technologies for making rafts and canoes, and to help build cities in the wetlands, they developed sophisticated means of water management, like moats, aqueducts, and pumps. Once they expanded their territory to the coast, it wasn't long before they colonized the many islands scattered across the Indigo Sea and became a prominent maritime power. The capital city of Hal Hamat is one of the largest and wealthiest ports in the world, often called the Heart of the Indigo Sea. It's said that among its floating markets and ornate plazas can be found any commodity imaginable, attracting traders and voyagers from all across the sea. The Okalayo have a great love of poetry, music, art, and self-expression. Most individuals bear at least one tattoo to mark a significant life experience or accomplishment, and learning to play the xiwaltu, a national instrument recognized throughout the world as a symbol of Okalayo culture, is considered an essential aspect of education. Sharing the continent with the Okalayo are the K'ama peoples, the most genetically distinct variety of humans, unable to breed with any other race. They have lanky, gracile bodies, long arms, and large jaws, and are often stereotyped as being savage and monstrous by other humans. The K'ama mostly live within the cities and foothills of their homeland of Tiipu-k'ama, where the limestone bedrock has been eroded into stone forests, sinkholes, and caverns. Many of the larger K'ama settlements are built within and around these landforms, connected by a network of stone roads through the densely forested valleys. Because the limestone bedrock is so porous, any water on the surface quickly seeps into subterranean drainage basins and aquifers, making conventional farming difficult. As such, for most of its history, K'ama agriculture has relied on techniques such as rainwater harvesting and dense mulching to artificially increase soil retention, but they eventually learned from the Okalayo how to construct pumps to bring groundwater to the surface. The K'ama have a very rich tradition of stoneworking, creating intricate handheld tools out of obsidian, flint, and bone, and carving rock faces and hillsides into temples and tombs. Although the K'ama are famed for their skill in hunting, they fear the dark forests on the far side of the continent, which, according to legend, are inhabited by all manner of monstrous creatures. But the furthest inhabited land from the sun is the volcanic archipelago of Nhlogwa, the only human territory to occur entirely within the far regions. Most of the islands are little more than barren outcroppings of rocky tundra, kept clear of trees by the dry climate and the occasional lava flow. Despite the perilous conditions, however, human civilization has existed on Nhlogwa longer than anywhere else in the world. The archipelago is strewn with crumbling stone ruins of ancient settlements that were abandoned or destroyed in volcanic eruptions, and the islands are dotted with half-sunken shrines and monuments whose significance has long since been forgotten. To the mainlanders, the islands have a reputation of remoteness, mysteriousness, bleakness, and, to many, fear. But some Thracian merchants still come to the capital of Ithqunjat to trade with the native islanders. Since the frigid climate and the barren rocky ground make growing crops impractical, the Nhlogwa survive on a diet of fish, mollusks, crustaceans, and seals. They also use the inedible parts of these animals for scrimshaw, carving tools, weapons, and talismans from shells and bones. But arguably their greatest forte is in masonry and engineering. They use complex hypercausts and intricate plumbing systems to circulate the heat generated from geothermal springs through a series of ducts within their walls and floors, and they carve out great cisterns to collect scarce rainwater and snowmelt. One of the great benefits to come from the islanders' dealings with the mainland was the creation of their own writing system, with which they now transcribe elaborate records of their history, culture, and mythology. This cultural exchange has also seen the Thracian religions become widespread among the islanders, but there's still a decent percentage of the population that preserves their ancestral belief system, which revolves around meditation and dreaming. The Nhlogwa believe in many interconnected worlds beyond the physical, accessible only through dreams and death. It's said that understanding and mastering one's dreams will help them navigate through the afterlife once they die, but those who fail to attain this enlightenment are doomed to dwell forever in the darkness on the far side of the islands. At a distance of about 6,000 kilometers from the center of the world, the light from the sun fades into near total darkness. The edges of the Great Ocean are fringed with pack ice, and the land at this distance is nothing but freezing, windswept wasteland. Any human unlucky enough to find themselves here will die from the cold within minutes. The regions within the darkness are known variously as the Nightlands, the Shadowlands, or the Outer Darkness. Many say that staring into the darkness for too long will drive one mad, but there are also tales from those claiming to have seen the silhouettes of vast, ineffable things moving within the gloom. These reports are largely dismissed as apocryphal, but no one who's ventured into the Nightlands has ever returned. So what, if anything, exists within the Nightlands, or even how far they extend, remains unknown. As far as anyone can determine, the Refugium is the only place in all of existence capable of harboring life, and that is why I call it the Refugium, as it's the only refuge for the inhabitants in the midst of an otherwise forbidding, unknowable void. A tiny speck of light and life in a vast, oppressive, all-encompassing cosmic darkness. So, those are some of the basic things to know about the Refugium. There are many other details of the world and its cultures still left to explore, and like I said before, there are some things I can't talk about just yet, but if you want to see more videos like this one, let me know in the comments below. And thanks to Campfire for sponsoring this episode. Their brand new software Blaze, which just launched this month, is a web-based application that helps you compile and organize all of your writing and world-building endeavors in one place. Blaze offers all of the features of Campfire Pro, including character sheets, timelines, maps, magic systems, languages, and encyclopedia entries, plus a suite of new tools like a word processor, a research module, and the ability to share and collaborate with other users in real time. In addition to the already substantial number of features included in the free version, you can also upgrade your interface by adding new modules through one-time purchase or through monthly or yearly subscription, letting you customize your workspace to suit your specific writing and world-building needs. To sign up for Blaze or to learn more, check out the link in the description. And in other news, some members of the Conlang community have recently initiated the Conlang database project, with the intent of cataloguing as many conlangs as possible within a single publicly available and searchable database. The project aims to include any and all conlangs, regardless of their level of development, and will be hosted on the Language Creation Society's website. To access the database and input your conlangs, click the link in the description. Thanks also to the fans over on Discord who helped out with the artwork for this episode. Links to the servers in the description. And once again, a massive thanks to all the patrons, whose continued support makes videos like this possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.